anything that they would like to address the committee with, here is your opportunity.
This would be item common.
Yes, yes.
I would like to say that I'm happy that the city moved forward and removed the giant fire hazard from behind the Boys and Girls Club. The gorilla mulch is gone.
Okay, any other? Okay, seeing that there's none, approval of minutes. I'll entertain a motion for approval of minutes from the meeting on September 18th, 2019.
I'll second the motion. Oh, first.
First and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And nay. Okay, old business. Seeing there's none, we'll keep moving. New business. We'll have a program update and orientation for CDAC members. And this recommendation that this item is to give the CDAC an update on Seaside CDBG program and the orientation to CDAC's role in the overall process.
Okay, I'll take it from here. Thank you. Since we have essentially an entirely new CDAC going forward, we've been taking some time in each of these meetings to kind of go over what the CDBG program is and how this group actually enters into the program. The CDAC does have a work plan as reviewed by the City Council. I attached that as an attachment into this packet. And for those of you in the audience that don't have a packet, you can always access it online. It's all available online for you. And if you've been coming to meetings before, you've seen some of these items before anyway. This was approved by the City Council, and it essentially says what this group does throughout the year. And the full work plan document is attached to this report. We'll be going over the next year's items that you'll be doing in March, because we have to turn that in April to be submitted to the City Council. The Community Development Block Grant Program, that's essentially what this is all about. You are the public component of administration of the program. It's a federal program that was created by the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974. It's been around a long time. This program provides grant funds to local and state governments to do viable urban communities, to provide decent housing and a suitable living environment, and expand economic opportunities. There's a lot of things that qualify in the CDBG program. There's a lot of things that don't qualify in the CDBG program. And a lot of it is for you to sort that out and see what are good ways to spend the money that the federal government allows us to have. During the course of the year, we do the Community Block Grant Program. We have the 5-year consolidated plan. We're actually starting work on that right now. That's what we're going to be doing this year, is a 5-year plan. And a piece of that 5-year plan is the 2-year application cycle that's going to start next month. And a piece of that is the annual action plan for the next year. So we're going to do 5 years, 2 years, and 1 year all at once this coming year. So it's going to be a pretty busy time, but it'll be a fun time. We're going to make it fun, really. Really, we're going to make it fun. I promise, we're making it fun. And there's some associated monitoring activities. We're going to talk about that as our next item. We have our 2-year application cycle. It's going to start next month with the mandatory meeting. That's the one that you're going to see a lot of people here, and they're going to sign in, and we need to make sure that they are here. We're going to have representatives from City Data Services, our online reporting system. We're going to do it all online this time. You guys will not be the lucky recipients of banker boxes full of applications. It's all going to be online. The cities that do use it, they love it. I met with the other grant recipients in the county today. We had a lunch meeting. It's very exciting that we're going to be on board with them. And just to give you a sneak preview, what will happen is the subrecipients or the potential subrecipients they'll log into this program. They'll have a drop-down menu, Seaside, fill in the blanks. If they're also applying for Monterey County or City of Salinas, they don't have to do it twice or 3 times. They put the main stuff in once, and then there's some specific Seaside questions that we'll have. So it'll be easier for everyone involved because they only have to do the legwork once. So, yay, it'll be like a couple of times they log in when they do the Salinas and the Monterey County ones with the slightly different questions at the end, but the bulk of it, they only have to upload once. So I think everyone will really like it, and we'll hear more about that next month. The other things that we did, none of you were here for it because this was last year. We did the analysis of impediments for fair housing. It's available online. I've provided a link to it in the staff report. But you can just do a search online for Monterey County analysis of impediments. The 5 agencies that I was just talking about, we all work together on this. So that is in already. That's required to do the consolidated plan. We just finished the CAPER, which is the last year's report of what we did. And at HUD's discretion, there's some audits that could take place. And in May of each year, I get a wonderful letter from HUD saying how good or how quickly we spent the money. It's very important that we spend the money. We've been doing very well at this. We didn't always have a great record at spending the money quickly. We're on track. It's good. Let's see. We have our funding cycle is aligned with the city's fiscal year, which means that anyone who applies for funding, that year starts in July. It doesn't start January, it starts in July to June. Capital projects don't necessarily tie up in a nice little bow, and they don't always end on June 30th like we'd like. They should be finished within 18 months, though. HUD will allow it to roll over a little bit. Our city finance department would really prefer they were done by June 30th. So we do have a couple of holdovers from last year, but they're working on it, and we're almost caught up. CDBG is a reimbursement grant, which means our subrecipients spend the money, send us a report of what they spent and how they spent it and all their background documents, and then we reimburse them. So they kind of have to float some money. So they have to be solvent enough to be able to float the money. Let's see. In all capital projects, if you're working on, like the Boys and Girls Club did a capital project, the improvements to the clubhouse, those are all done at prevailing wage. So there's a lot of red tape and extra expense involved because the federal requirements, you have to adhere to all the federal requirements. HUD has approved our 2019-2020 annual action plan. The funding is now available for reimbursement from HUD, and our subrecipients have all been notified to update their information. Almost all of them have done it, and they've got their contracts, and it's been a really busy last couple of weeks, but almost everybody is set up now with their contracts. If they don't have their contracts yet, they're in the system getting signed at City Hall. So that part is on track. Let's see, analysis impediments. We did the community needs workshop last month. We'll be talking a little more about that here coming up tonight. But what we really do want to stress is that this group here is a key component of our citizen participation plan. We do want to make sure that the citizens are involved with what we'd like to see and how we would like the applications to come in. I mean, obviously, you can't wish something to happen and if nobody has the right type of organization to do it, we're not going to get an application for it. But it's always good to find out what the community needs, because maybe somebody will find out from what we talk about later that maybe Seaside is interested in something that doesn't necessarily fall into this, but now they know that there's interest in the community. So even though some of the things that you're going to see who are on those posters are not really CDBG type things, it's still important that we know what the community wants. The CDAC members, we do need to remind you that if you are, and I don't know this, if any of you are members of a governing board of an applicant, please let me know, or let Leslie, the city clerk, know, because you really should not be on this board if you are a governing member of any of the groups who are applying for funding. They might find another board or commission that's a better fit for you, because that's definite conflict of interest if you are sitting on the board, or if you work for any of, I do not know, I did not screen you, and it's one of those, if it's something that you should know about, and because you don't want somebody else to go, hey, that person knew, and they're on this board, and they gave money, and you just don't want to go there. So just an upfront, if any of you are involved in any way with anyone who's an applicant, please let us know so you can recuse yourself. If you happen to live near a project that gets proposed within 500 feet, you can recuse yourself from a discussion from that project. You're not going to get a financial interest in that project, but it could improve your home value. Or so those are things that need to be taken into consideration. But that then you wouldn't necessarily need to resign from the committee for. It's just a coincidence. So anyways, if anything like that comes up, please let me know. And it does not have to be in this meeting, privately, and we'll address that. And that essentially is it for this particular discussion. If any of you have any questions, I know all of you are new. Feel free to ask, and that's my report. Yes, I have a question.
Excuse my ignorance on this, but the allotted funds, the HUD funds that we are principally dealing, in this fiscal year, have they already, has this already been granted?
Oh, yes, yeah.
So
We're still looking ahead.
So our primary responsibility would be oversight.
Oh, for what's currently allocated. Starting next month, we're doing 2 years in the future.
Okay.
We're getting applications for what's coming up, and you will be screening the applications for next year and the year after that. And creating the plan for the next 5 years of what you'd like to see
Are
come
those
in.
funds guaranteed?
No, it's federal funding.
So
Nope.
they're sort of politically
It's
appointed.
very political, and it's no secret that our president does not like this program and has tried to stop it the last 2 years in a row. So, yeah.
Have they cut it at all?
We have been getting drastically reduced grants.
In the last decade, the funding has dropped close to 50%.
And even when you see the projections that you'll see later in tonight's, it's guessing. I'm just taking what we've been getting, and well, this is the trend. And we don't find out what our grant actually is until the spring, and that's after we've already gone through the screening process, trying to predict how we want to allocate funding that we're not sure we're getting. So it's kind of a guessing game. So yeah, you're going to have to bear with the process. And what we do is we actually say, this is contingent upon this award, and we'll adjust it up or down when we get the notice of the funds.
Is there anything we can do about that? Can
Nope.
lobby?
Well, I don't know if you know somebody at the federal government, maybe. I mean, this is federal, yeah.
And like for people on our side, I don't even start a scope of work until Sharon tells us exactly how much money we're getting. So, and last year, I found that out in, end of October?
When we get the actual, it was very late. Yeah. I mean, the guys, the year started, the fiscal year started in July. Your contract was what, last week?
Right.
Yeah. By the time we get all this stuff actually processed, I mean, we will retroactively reimburse them back to July, but by the time the paperwork gets processed, yeah, it's 3 months into the fiscal year. That's a great question, though. Thank you. Thank you for asking it. Okay, we can move on to the next item.
Item 16 is update of the CDAC on the 2019 Imperial sample verification. Purpose of this item is to update the CDAC on the HUD accrual sample verification conducted in August 2019.
All right. Hey, I'm really glad that someone from the Boys and Girls Club is here tonight because the San Francisco field office of HUD contacted me on August 5th, sent me an email and said they wanted documentation to back up a reimbursement voucher I submitted. They just randomly said, okay, we paid you this money, let's see what you have for backup. It was the Boys and Girls Club. And what it was they wanted to know, it was, I believe it was $27,000 that we paid them. Anyways, they wanted all the backup. So, okay. So I sent them their employee timesheets, their vendor invoice, a copy of the check, the Boys and Girls Club report to me saying they wanted the money, the City of Seaside actual verification, the request from them, my Draw 11 voucher, which was the 11th draw I had done for the year from HUD, and copies of all the prevailing wage documents. And I attached them in the packet. So if you wanted to look at this online, and I really strongly would suggest that you do this. And I did redact it. I took out all the bank account numbers and all the social security numbers and all that stuff. I redacted it. You guys can redact it when you upload it too, by the way. They do not care about everybody's social security numbers because of this can actually happen that randomly they can just say, let's see. But anyways, I did, as you can see on this, I did redact the information. They actually even had employee interviews where they checked to make sure that the employees were making the proper prevailing wage, which is something I didn't even ask for, but it's a lovely extra touch because it means that you're really paying attention. So just to let all of you know that on any random day, I can get a call from HUD saying, okay, why did you ask for this money? And I have to cough up documents. And so we did, and I just want to let you all see what it was that we...
97,000?
Well, that was a piece of it. They just wanted that one request, one little request. They didn't want your whole project. They just wanted one random draw that I got from HUD.
Demo cost.
It probably was, because it was, well, let's see.
Is it Coast Light Environmental?
It was, $29,304.65, I believe, because that's,
Phase one.
yeah, it was just one of the things that you had requested. Anyways, it was a whole packet of information. I sent it off to HUD. They were very appreciative, and it was like, thank you, Sharon, have a nice day. But they wanted everything, just for that one little piece. Which is, and actually that's a good thing that you had done such a complete job, because that means, oh, well, good, well, we probably won't have to come see more, so that was good. And I just wanted to let all of you know that that is the type of thing that can happen. Just on any.
Has that happened?
How many times has that happened?
Yeah.
Since I've been here? Once. This is it. Yeah. Yay. You got. I'm like, okay, what is it? Yep. And we had everything. So it was just a random thing, and HUD can do that.
For just this year's project, I have a 3-inch binder that's overflowing with just information related to our project.
And one of the nice things that I also want to stress is that since now we're doing this online reporting, for you, all you did was upload documents. All I did was download the stuff that you had put in, and it was seamless. It was just
And
boom,
still
boom, boom.
keep hard copies of all of it.
Yeah, it's a good idea. So, anyways, that's my report, and I did want to let you know that those things can happen on any given day.
And I got a good thing for some of the sub-recipients are any emails I have between Sharon, any emails I have between HUD, between our contractors, Those are all in my binder too, so that if we do get audited, which I know we're possible for this year,
It could happen, but, you know, we'll see how it goes.
that's stuff they want to see.
So, silly question, so was this an audit or is this a different?
They called it, they didn't call it an audit, they called it an annual accrual sample verification. Just a sample of something they paid out to us. Because what I have to do when I get reimbursed from HUD, I have to load all these things up, like right now we have 17 projects. And they all have a line item in HUD. And then when everybody asks for the quarterly, or in their case it was after the demo, piece of the project was done, they request the funds so they can get reimbursed. And when I pay them, and then I ask HUD to pay us. And it was I asked HUD to pay us, and they just picked that line item of them. It wasn't everything of that entire draw, it was just that piece. They asked for that line item. They could have asked for more, but they didn't, so yay. But yeah, they just randomly picked a line.
And also, through the committee, to the chairman, there's also some people say that the dreaded site visits.
We're trying to, but I actually, like I had mentioned to some of you earlier, I actually met with some of the other agencies in the county today, and we're trying to kind of get on the same page so that we don't all show up separately to audit you. I mean, that would be, it's inconvenient for everybody because we're all asking for the same stuff. So we are actually aware of this, and we're working on it. So.
And we do well, and I know that.
Oh, you guys
agencies,
did a great job last time.
Other sister agencies do well also, but I think all of us kind of anguish over.
And it's understandable. It's we're coming to look at your books.
It's pretty much a day long.
It can be very time consuming.
They let you know it's not unannounced.
No, they do let you know some advance notice.
Yeah, we don't show up unannounced.
Yeah, right. No, that wouldn't work at all because you wouldn't have all the stuff together correctly. But it's, nonetheless, even though and I know other agencies too, you got all of your stuff together. But just the idea that, one, you're going to take a big chunk of your day and have somebody else come in there, and then they're going to be looking at all of your stuff, they're going to have questions and all that. Not that you can't answer them, but it becomes arduous. I think it's part of the process. And we've done it, we've expected, and, but I don't think anybody loves it. But we also understand, too, that it has to be done as well. So if there's a way to kind of...
Yeah, we actually did talk about that today at the meeting I was at, because we don't like to inconvenience the subrecipients. That's we know you're doing a great job, and it takes time out of your day to accommodate us as well. So yeah.
I almost feel like city data services could actually help to kind of slow those down, because
we're trying to get a lot of this stuff coordinated so that there's a lot less duplication of everyone's time and effort.
Well, and if everybody's loading everything into city data services,
That it's all there.
yeah, that's why you need to come look at my binder, because it's already all there.
And that I'm on board with that. So, agreed.
And just to follow up, so normally you would just, so all this documentation here for the accrual, you would just keep on site, and it would normally be...
They're actually required to keep it on
Okay,
site.
so you're better,
Yeah.
And we used to have to scan it, send it to Sharon, and then she'd have to send it to HUD. Well, now it just goes to city data services, and they just shoot to her and say that.
Yeah, actually, that was one of the things that they discussed at the meeting that I was at, that they actually did say, you could have just sent them a link to your city data site and say, It's all there, but I didn't feel comfortable doing that. I would, in this case, I didn't have a problem giving them all this information. And once I saw that it wasn't redacted, I wanted to make sure it was redacted too. So, anyways, that is that report. And great job, Boys and Girls Club, and really all of our subrecipients do a really good job at this. They just happen to be the ones that they asked for. So they were our lucky ask on that one.
It would be my luck that we would be the ones.
You did great. It's good.
We're on item 6C, review the results of the community needs survey.
Okay. At our August meeting, the CDAC requested that we have a community needs survey so if anyone was unable to attend the workshop, they could still weigh in online and participate. We did hand out surveys at the workshop. Not a single one of the paper copies were returned. That was a little surprising that none of the paper copies were returned. But we did get, I believe, let's see, 28 online responses through October 9th. The results are screenshots because we have the free SurveyMonkey, so I couldn't really print it out any other way. I had to screenshot it. But it was primarily Seaside residents and homeowners who responded. As far as the 5 broad categories, everybody liked all the categories. I mean, there was no real surprises in this, except for maybe which housing activity they felt was most important. I was surprised to see code enforcement was the clear winner. That was a little surprising. A lot of people don't like code enforcement, but apparently this group did. Homeless services activity, employment training, emergency services. It's not a lot of surprises there. What's community services activity? Actually, all the community services activities are important. But programs for children and youth did come out the clear leader on that one, and that's not surprising. Economic development activity, they would like to see, apparently they would like to see businesses sprucing up their businesses. They want commercial facade improvements. But from community facilities improvements, they were, all of them had some input on that. Parks or the winner, but all of them, youth centers, I mean, there was interest in everything. What public improvements activities? This one is a no-brainer. It's streets and sidewalks. Are there needs of the community not being met? Well, of course there are. So there wasn't a lot of surprises in this survey, but it was good to get the community input. We did have some people who did some. They wrote in some comments, and I'll read them to you because I know not everybody has a copy of this, so I will read them out. Is there something that you would feel should be funded by community development block grant funds? Some of these suggestions are not really CDBG worthy, but I'm going to read them anyway because this is what we got in the survey. Tiny house container housing. There's women on the streets subject to endless sexual assault. Being able to feel safe is priceless. Housing first is the only way to end homelessness. Employ community members in executing needed development activities. Street pavement conditions, especially the streets leading to and surrounding businesses. Funding for additional programs to help Seaside residents gain economic mobility through vocational training and education. Although it wasn't the most important issue listed, Seaside residents desperately need help from the city for home improvements. The increases in home restoration permits have increased to the point of making home improvements impossible for many people. Someone just said no. Appearance of the city and less red tape to grow. Community-based mental health and substance abuse counseling. The streets in Seaside need to be repaved. More services for seniors, lack of housing for the working, temporarily homeless, and a nonprofit organization that helps create, local businesses. I'd like to see Broadway's entrance finished. The planned connection to Contra Costa looked really nice. Traffic, they just said traffic. Overall aesthetics, overcrowding in homes and parking issues. Clean up the streets and neighborhoods of junk, too many vehicles on the streets and lawns and houses that need to be cared for to make Seaside attractive. Streets and sidewalk repair, micro businesses to bring jobs. Low interest rate loans for seniors to renovate homes. Code enforcement and small loans for home repairs, senior assistance to stay in their homes, and potholes in so many streets. So that's what we got back from the survey. It was 28 responses. It's not really statistically representative of the community, but it's people who are interested in filling out a survey. So,
Does the grant really address infrastructure matters?
it can if you wanted to. It really needs to be in one of those zones that are like special need zones that we had talked about. And we can talk about that a little more in the next item. But yes, you can. Street improvements are very costly. We do not get a very large grant. And someone would have to actually apply to do it. And it would be paid at prevailing wage. So there's a lot of ifs in there. But the answer to your question is, yes, you could. If you had it in the right spot.
Some CDBG money went to the Casino Park project.
Some CDBG money did go towards Catino Park. It went for the accessibility improvements.
Wasn't there a street, Wanda Street or something like that?
Wanda sidewalks, they have not done it yet, but yes. The city did apply for some funds to do in a very targeted area. That is correct. But it has to be in a certain neighborhood, and usually they try to make it an accessibility improvement because that way it definitely would qualify. And accessibility improvements are.
In the past, has the public been able to take the survey like they did this year?
It's the first time we've done it. And we did it you guys requested it, so I put one. I did it. Huh?
28 people participating in the survey. Do you think that's good?
I had no expectations.
Okay. I was just.
We've never done it before, so it's just a matter of who
We have our
wants.
benchmark at 28 this year.
Well, I think the bigger surprise is that nobody who was handed a paper survey returned one. That was the number that amazed me, that not one person who got a paper survey in their hand returned it. No, they may have gone online and done it. I don't know, because it's online and it's anonymous. So, but 28 surveys in a city this size is not statistically valid. To say that. But you don't know until you try it. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Did they ask for any demographic information as well, about responses? So?
I can get that information for you, I think. I'm not sure if it will tell it through SurveyMonkey or not.
Yeah.
Because we didn't spend CDBG funds to do it other than I keyed it into SurveyMonkey. I mean, we tried to keep the costs down on this, so. But I can check on that and get you an answer. I don't believe it's going to tell you that.
Yeah, no, that's fine, because I have the free version of it. Probably.
Yeah, this is the free version, and I screenshotted everything I could come up with, so.
Definitely next week.
Yeah, we can always, this is a baseline now. Now we have a baseline.
Actually, I was going to ask about the housing code enforcement. How many permits increased, or has there been more red tape, or
For
like housing improvement? So it's been mentioned in the comments, but just curious about
I don't have a good answer for you other than we probably could use more staff. And you can use CDBG to hire staff. That would be the city would have to say they want to use it. It's certainly something that I can take back if you determine that this is something that you would like the city to do. I can put that in as the CDAC requests that, you know. And it can be in the 5-year plan. It doesn't necessarily have to be, we want to see it right now. This has been determined as a need.
I was more
And that brings us to our next item. So if you guys want to go to the next item, then we can actually talk about that a little more.
Item D, determine the top community needs for use in the 2020-2015 consolidated plan and the 2020-2022 Seaside.
You know, I typoed this thing awful. We'll do it. It's the 2020 to 2025 consolidated plan, and then it's the 2020 to 2022 application cycle. So we're talking about the 5-year plan and the 2-year application cycle, because what we have to determine is all of these things. What we want to do overall, the 2-year cycle, and then right down to the what do we think next year is. So right now, what I will do is get out some of the things from last month if you would like to look at them. They're in the packet, but we also have them. If you want to see the real life things that we did last month. And I'm just going to look at it. So if you want to refer to any of this stuff, it's all here. And if you want to refer to any of the stuff that we brainstormed, we have these. They're all in the packet. I screenshotted everything and put it in the packet. If anybody wants to refresh their memories, it's all there. And what we're really doing tonight is to come up with 1, 2, 3. We can come up with 5 goals that you would like to see so that we can start the consolidated plan and present it to council. I'll be making a presentation to council on November 7th, saying that we're starting our application process coming up in November, and that this is what we would like to see. I will give you a heads up, you do not have to reinvent the wheel with this. The ones that were already in the last cycle were enhance access to social services. It essentially means your public service stuff. You're probably going to keep that in there. Provide quality infrastructure. This is where roads and sidewalks comes into play. Improve accessibility for persons with disabilities. You don't have to change these. You can embellish them and say, certain things you'd like to see in these categories. Address blight and nuisance. This is one that we actually, when we did the 5-year plan the last time, we actually had a facade improvement program. The company that was coordinating that backed out, and so we did not achieve that goal for the CDBG funds. So we can include that. You can include that. You can include anything you would like to include that's CDBG qualified. That's just a heads up that one did not really meet the goal because there was no one to coordinate it. Rehab existing housing. If you go to the last page of your packet before the long-term calendar, you see my projections of how much funding it looks like we will get over the next 5 years. You'll notice that funds available for other activities, which would be the anything other than public service, it's not a lot of dollars. So it won't stretch really far if you're going into rehabbing housing or doing street paving. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying you could theoretically have someone say, okay, I'm going to pave streets, but it's going to take all of the money. And we're pretty inclusive, we've been pretty inclusive with the CDBG funding, so if somebody says, I'm proposing a $300,000 paving project, and you only have $273,000, that would shut everybody else out. That's a realistic number for a paving project. So just keep that in mind. And another one was to construct, upgrade public facilities. Now, constructing up and upgrade public facilities includes things like the Boys and Girls Club. It's a building that's open to the public. Catino Park was included in that. But Catino Park actually fell into the improve accessibility for persons with disabilities category and not a public facility. Although we could have gone both ways, but the way that we approached it with CDBG was to do those upgrades because there were other funding sources for the other items. So and anyway, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the panel, and if you can come up with 6 goals, please do. And I will remind you that this meeting is live streamed, so please try to talk loud enough that we pick up your voice.
Well, can I ask, do we actually have the top needs, a copy of the last one?
Yes,
Is that already in the packet, or is that?
it's in the packet, and it's kind of small. So here it is.
Oh, is that?
It's this one. And you guys can look at that. You sure can. I did take them off of there.
Yeah.
So it should say exactly the same thing. But it's okay.
Some days like the rehabilitated housing or creative facilities might be a little bit out of touch, but it's still goals that we work with other groups.
That's all. Yeah. So we have the same amount of groups with this, right? Same amount of people applying.
That's correct. And we may have more next year. We will find out in next month. There's probably, to be honest, we had a new person here tonight who has never applied. And they'll probably be here next month. And yeah, I don't have no idea what they want to apply for. But yeah, we are bound to have new applicants.
Is this pretty consistent with the rest of the consolidated, like the city of Salinas, Monterey?
City of Salinas and Monterey County get significantly more funds than we get. And they use a different process. They don't have this group. It's a little different. Yeah, they have more money to work with for absolute sure. What we've generally done in the past, and I probably should have mentioned this earlier, well, we will definitely mention it next month, is for public services, we've asked that the applications be between $5,000 and $15,000 a year, simply because of the volume, so that we have half a chance of, being inclusive. If we have too many more public service applicants, it's going to prove to be very difficult for them to administratively process these grants. The paperwork involved is really a lot, and they may just say it's not worth their time and effort to even apply for the grant because of the administrative upkeep to do it. I'm not trying to discourage any of them from doing it. This is a fact, and this has come up at these meetings before too. And so I'm not trying to put words in anyone's mouth. They've actually said this at meetings. So.
Or have to pay exorbitant fees to grant writers. So we come in and actually write it for
This is an online application process. They're just filling in the blanks. They're supplying documents and filling in blanks, and we ask how much money do they let's ask you guys, because do you have grant writers for this? I wouldn't think so.
We have one of our development associates, Andrew, basically all we write is the narrative, kind of what we want to do, how we feel it will help us, and it's basically it. We wrote the one for project we did recently. We did our flooring. We basically wrote that it would help bring our building up to date, and it would also make it healthier for our members. And that was basically it.
Yeah, there's not a lot of narrative really involved with this. There's a lot of paperwork as far as, are you fiscally solvent? Are you able to be able to float the money so that you can be reimbursed? Those are the types of things that I think that have been told to me that are the most hard for everyone to provide, because it's just a lot of paperwork.
I'm lucky. I cover the project side, and then my supervisor, he does paperwork side. And then I do all the project-based paperwork. So luckily for me, I have somebody who can share the burden with, somebody like Village Project or CPY. It's usually one person doing all of it. So it's a lot of paperwork.
It is.
I'm wondering if it would be easy if we have people apply, and then we can know where we would put the money.
Essentially, in the long run, that is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You can specify what you would like to see, and here's the thing. HUD requires us to have a plan. This is what we want to see. We would like to see it in these categories. We have to project it. This is what this 5-year plan is us projecting, this is what we would like to do in the next 5 years, and hope that the applications follow. Realistically, when it actually comes down to when we're sitting here in February, it's going to be, this is what we have, how did this, if some of this fits great, and in the real world, when you get to February, it's going to be, which of these is the most worthy project, and does it fit into one of these categories? Let's hope so. And if it is really, if for some reason, let's say you guys come up with something tonight, and the actual applications come in and they're totally different. In February, we haven't written this consolidated plan yet, so we can still adjust. So you're going to be good for this coming year. You might want to say in the 5-year plan, maybe this isn't such a great idea. We still have time to adjust. Yeah, right now it's essentially, this is what we'd like to see. And I'll take this to council and say, this is what we'd like to see. The way it gets out there, yes, this is what we'd like to see. What we actually get might be totally different. If you get, say, 2 years down the road, and all the applications are totally different from what you've decided in this process, we can actually do an amendment to the consolidated plan and say, look, things have changed. We're going to really adjust it, and we're going to dump all that money into whatever, streets, whatever comes up as, oh, this is really the hot item, and we're going to do this. You can change your mind. It once again involves a lot of red tape. You have to prepare an amendment, you have to go to council, you have to put it out for public review, you have to do this. Can it be done? Yes, we did it. In fact, we did do it when we changed the library project a few years back. We were going to put a roof on the library. Turns out the library does not serve more than 51% low moderate income. It did not qualify. So what we did was, okay, we still want to do some work on the library. We did a substantial amendment to the consolidated plan, and we changed it and said, okay, we will do accessibility improvements to the library. But we had to, this group met, said we want to do this, went to council, we did 45 days, it's all hoops to jump through. If you do it the first time and you cover enough bases and keep it broad enough, you don't have to do that. So my suggestion is keep it broad, but inclusive.
I would feel a whole lot more comfortable because I feel kind of personally like I'm operating in a silo. Because I do know that with Fort reuse and with Create Seaside, that there are other collaborative groups operating in College Town that I've read about. Wouldn't it be worthwhile to coordinate and collaborate with other, because if we're working in this way, maybe we can together make more of an impact than $350,000.
This group is just how do you spend that $350,000?
So we don't have any outside perspective.
I think we can.
You could. Yeah, your scope of what you're deciding is this.
So if another committee has an idea for a project, we can say
They can apply for that money.
Right.
That's absolutely correct. If something says, I want to do something up in Campus Town and I want to use CDBG funding for it, they can absolutely do it.
So this doesn't have to be a standalone project.
This is just how can you...
We just spend $350,000.
That's, yeah, your concern is how are we spending this money? And there can be other things going on around it. There can be other groups that say, in fact, we do have a group right now. We have the Veterans Transition Center. We are part of CDBG funding for renovating duplexes for homeless veterans. Seaside's involved, City of Monterey's involved, Monterey County's involved, and Home Depot put a grant in. All one project, all different funding sources. They reached out to get the funding sources. Anything can reach out and try to get this funding source.
Also, you know, and the way that we've been operating is that, you know, the CDBG money that we get is for our after-school academy. Generally, it's to take care of the tutors that. But we also work with CSUMB, the Service Learning Department. So we have service learners every semester that also come over and help augment, you know, our staff because they get their hours and everything else. But we have a working, you know, collaborative partnership. We have contracts and all that others. And then we also have some other groups, which some of them included groups from the faith community and all that, who also come in and provide other kinds of services for our kids and families and stuff as well. That's what we do. So we can bring people in. You know, they don't necessarily, you know, get the CDBG money. That's not why they're doing it, but we reach out everywhere. We got a lot of partners and stuff that we still work with anyway, even though the money's actually coming for our one purpose. We're able to draw people in to help us, you know, with our after-school academy and stuff too. So that's one way of doing it, the broader kind of collaborative stuff.
Well, this is actually, it started coming to this meeting last year.
That's true. You did, yes, that's correct.
So, kind of what I just noticed that the CDAC committee is for, it's, you're here to kind of decide where you want the money to go, but then you're also overseeing that money by picking who is going to get audited, who is going to possibly do a presentation of the project as opposed to the audit. So that's kind of what you guys as a committee do. You just take that CDBG money, figure out where it goes, and make sure it goes where we're saying it goes. And like he's saying, we as groups, we get CDBG money from Seaside for our Seaside Clubhouse. We get CDBG money from the City of Salinas for our transportation program in Salinas. So we are getting it from multiple locations, and then we also get grants from other locations. So the CDBG money is going into the bigger picture with us, with the groups. But the CDAC committee, you guys are kind of narrowed into that CDBG money.
And then it's really up to the groups, how we then people leverage that money is something to bring in other broader folks to collaborate with, you know, but as you know, as you're pointing out, I mean, your responsibility to make sure that the money is going where it's supposed to go, you know, and it's used for what it's supposed to be used for, you know, and it's up to us to do that.
Are there any groups out there that rely functions solely on CDBG?
Let's hope not. They shouldn't.
Because they've got to be able to.
They have to be able. They have to be
Yeah.
able to pay this stuff up front because they're getting reimbursed with CDBG
Right.
money.
Unfortunately, we, in certain boards in the Coast Club, we're certain we are able to do that. Because we do have the other funding and stuff, and the terrorist systems, and we're able to get reimbursed. But if a group is not, then it's going to be pretty tough. Plus, it's not a world of money anyway. So it can augment some things and stuff. It certainly helps us with being able to bring on the additional tutor staff or something like that. But it's not a world of money.
And like in the 2-year cycles, we're one of the groups that gets a large portion of the money because we're doing capital projects. We still, every year we've done a CDBG project, we've still gone over the CDBG money.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna, if you're doing a capital project, what you applied for 2 years ago, inflation costs go up, tariffs come into play, materials change. So, I mean, our project for this year was to upgrade our community room, basically putting a divider to turn it into 2 spaces that the community could use on the weekends. We do a lot of community groups coming in and wanting to use our facility. Right now, we have one big room. We want to divide that room so that 2 groups can use it. When we originally looked at that, it was a $22,000 project out of the 27 beginning, because we know it's always overhead for us. And now I've started getting kind of estimates from groups we know aren't going to bid on the CDBG project, and it's coming in at $35,000 to $40,000, and that's just in 2 years. It's almost double the cost. So.
And we're not like benchmarked against them. It's not like somebody comes around and says we do a feature. So I'm kind of a sucker for data, and I like seeing bar charts and stuff like that. And it seems pretty clear to me that so given the resource constraints that we have, we're not going to have a lot of capital project possibilities, right? So I think we can probably consolidate like the quality infrastructure, housing, public facilities into maybe one, but then better target.
Here's my suggestion, to leave them as separate categories.
Separate?
You can leave them as separate categories because you have more goals that way. And when we get further into the process, closer to the end of the year, we can actually say, okay, this is what we received these allocations for. Right now, it is kind of a shot in the dark, because we don't know what the applications are going to be for the next cycle. But we can say, we would like to see infrastructure. We would like to see facade improvements. We may not get any. We can say we'd like to see them. At this point, you can certainly ask for them because it qualifies. So long as facade improvements are like in the right zones, you can't necessarily say, we want to see Broadway. Broadway's not in the right zone. It needs to be in the 137 zone, and I'll show you this on here. Yeah, there's certain parts of the city. Yes, this is all a difficult development area, and it's kind of great for talking points. But when it comes to the reality, this one right here, 137. If it's in this zone, your location qualifies. It doesn't even have to be a business that's hurting. It can be in the zone and location qualifies. So when you do this sort of thing, it's like we'd like to see facade improvements in zone 1, in track 137. You can do that. You can ask for it. It doesn't mean you're going to get it. You can ask and say, we'd like to see this. Maybe someone can do it. I would have some other choices, not just say that, because reality will step in and say, okay, well, I have something not apply. But you never know if you kind of put something we'd like to see improvements here. You can say we'd like to see code enforcement. I don't know how the city wants to apply for their grant money. They may say, no, we're fine the way we're paying it, or maybe people think that's a great idea. I don't know. So this is where you can make the request and we can see how it flies. I would not necessarily come up too many more than that at this point because we don't have a lot of funds. I mean, there just is not a lot of money to work with.
To clarify what I was going to say is, so these three seem sufficiently close in area that we thought would consolidate them. But then looking at the data that we have here, people seem to be asking for things about youth programs.
It all, it all.
So that's all in there?
And it's all in the 15% cap. So, and that's where things get tricky. Because we will have a lot of applicants fighting over 15% of that money. And that's kind of a fact of life here. If we could get some of those groups that are to apply for, if they have buildings that are open to the public and they want to do improvements on their building, like the Boys and Girls Club does, that's another way they can get some funding, and it's not part of the 15%. That way they're in the other category where they're doing an improvement to a building. And if they're doing an accessibility improvement to a building, that's even better because we know it's going, the more categories you fit into, the better, really, as far as HUD is concerned. And we do have to keep in mind that everything that we do has to benefit low to moderate income. So that's where the location becomes really, really important. If you pick something that will go in that Tract 137, it's location qualified. And you don't even, and in many cases, you do not have to even track the individual recipients. We can just say it's location qualified.
Like the groups like us, we're just outside that group because a large portion of our membership comes from there. Is how, same thing with Village Project and CPY. That's how we're able to apply for it.
And then, like the Village Project, they give us a complete breakout demographics, who's, yeah.
This section
It-
we're right here. Village Project is CPY, main office is here, but they're.
Well, if your clientele is citywide, we do ask you for demographics. And HUD's going to want it. Ultimately, HUD's the one that says, look, you provide us with this data. But if you're doing like a capital improvement project and you're in 137, when we did the micro business thing, we were helping micro businesses. It had to be a business that was under 5 employees. One of them had to be the owner. If you were in 137, you got tons of extra points because you were in the zone that HUD wants us to do. Unbelievably enough, most of the applicants were not from 137, but if you were, you got tons of points and.
It is, so that is one of the programs, though. That's one of the
There's
programs.
a nuisance, there's a nuisance program.
Okay, well, they don't have programs.
That's HUD's wording.
Yeah, does the nuisance
That is-
does the nuisance come from the HUD as well? The term nuisance?
I believe it does.
Yes, I think it comes.
A lot of those terms are HUD terms.
That probably comes from legislation, right?
Probably.
Whenever it comes passed.
They have a lot of categories, and I believe nuisance is one of them.
It hasn't changed a lot of wording since
Yeah, this program does go back to 1974, so yeah, there's a lot of things that are kind of.
I'm not surprised that nobody was wanting to change it.
Come on, it's the funny word.
I don't see, well, to be honest, I don't really see much anything on there that the extra goals that really changes the current goals, right? So that housing, rehabilitation,
You don't have to change the goals if you don't want to.
That's
But
what I'm saying.
yeah,
It's
you
not-
do not
it's
have to change the goals. And it's not mandatory you change them. I personally would suggest to reword a little of them because, especially the facade improvements, although you could leave it in, the that one just kind of fell apart because we did not have anybody who would step up to do it. The way it was structured in the past, and it was before I was here, the cost to do the facades and what they would reimburse for was not nearly proportional, and to have to do it with prevailing wage, it wasn't economical for anyone to do this program. It does cost a lot to improve the facade of a building.
I'm actually kind of, I'm actually leaving all these goals on there. Maybe adding to the housing or something, some mention of commercial facades, but I don't really see a huge change in the numbers. You guys have preference?
At the last meeting, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard over and over again, people talking about our young people leaving the community because they're not the jobs or the entertainment or the quality of life that we wanted to keep with the way we wanted to attract green jobs or new jobs or innovative thinking. I heard that over and over. People were asking for that. And I was really kind of excited about it. People were thinking, yes, how can we adjust and keep a lot of the younger people that are leaving here?
We could, one of the categories that we can utilize more is micro businesses. We can say that we want to address startups, because those will be qualified with the amount of people. It has to be 5 or under employees that qualify for that. But we could add a category for addressing micro businesses and put that in the goals.
Youth services and senior citizens services were probably the two that we could use. I don't think that the home repair, let's do some kind of program for neighborhood improvement where we have an elderly homeowner that gets selected for whatever process. Then we might be able to do it. But some of the homes that would be the dilapidated homes that need to be repaired, that home are somewhere. Do we have enough money to do that? Yeah, just,
Just an example on prevailing wage. We wanted to basically help develop the community. We were using some CDBG money to repaint our window frames. Under prevailing wage, those came in at, I believe, $7,200. When we finally said, no, we're taking that out, we're just using money to do our roof and our skylights. We bid it out non-prevailing wage, it came in at $2,400. So that's how big of a difference prevailing wage can make in a project. So a home repair that could cost an average construction company $10,000, prevailing wage, you're looking at $25,000-$30,000. So just a roof line cost prevailing wage, you're probably looking at $30,000.
Yes, I'm afraid so. I need them tonight.
Well, so I think we've already agreed for micro businesses,
You want to add micro businesses, and do you want to keep out everyone that is in there now, or you can take them out. You can rearranging them doesn't make any difference because it's no particular order.
What we do is we go through each one and we just say.
Yes or no?
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
That works.
Yeah.
Right, so enhance access to social services?
Yes.
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 All right, provide quality infrastructure? That's a little bit, don't waste what you're.
Like what?
Sidewalk improvements.
Streets, lights, lamp posts, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, we can only change what I say, yeah.
Yeah, we might not be able to actually fund the whole thing, but it's something that improve access for persons with disabilities.
Yes.
Address collective nuisance. Monitor.
Sounds too complex.
I'm the nuisance in Carmel, so.
I have a lot of nuisances. It's kind of general.
I think that's why they did it that way, so a nuisance is different from one person to another. I think that's why they did it that way, so they can incorporate whatever you want to be a nuisance. Right?
I think this is kind of like it's like a legacy term, catch-all.
Yeah.
I'm okay with keeping it as well. Yes. I think we're going to keep the address blank.
Okay.
And it could be cars in the
You know, just because you keep it in doesn't necessarily mean anyone's going to apply for funding for it either. I mean, we're guessing at this point, so, I mean, this is,
I think it's just a verbiage. Come up with something else.
Something more seasonal. All right, so rehabilitate existing housing.
Wow. You know, different house.
you guys are nodding and I can't tell you what you're
we have,
doing.
two names for the.
Take out rehab, okay. Rehab housing, not rehab of rehab, sorry.
And construct or upgrade public facilities. I think some of them are like so that would be one of them. So I'm okay with keeping that in. It's sufficiently generic. Generic. The category is generic. That's not your very important part, guys. That's not what I want. I'm okay with keeping it in like that. Yes.
And you guys wanted to add micro businesses, right?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, cool. Do you have them, is that all the whole list? Because you guys took my list, sorry.
Yeah, so that's the whole list.
Okay, so is there anything else that you want to add?
Is there something for the seniors like meals
If, well, that's all part of public services, which is going to be in there anyway.
Okay.
But we can say that if you want youth and
Well, I
seniors
understand
as
what-
part of your preferred public services, that's okay.
Was a legal, there was a representative for legal.
Legal services for seniors?
That's all in that same.
Yeah.
Rather than say something like light, I would prefer to see something constructive, like
Various-
sidewalks and what they're doing on this street.
You would rather have like beautification, okay.
Neighborhood beautification.
Yeah, it looks like people taking pride in it.
I'll word it that way, but HUD wants it, HUD will say it's that, but
Right.
I'll be happy to word it that way to council. Because that is a much better way to say it, I agree.
Just add beautification to address.
Sure, but like, yeah, I'm fine with that. I think that's a great idea.
So are we?
Not that my opinion counts.
So are we just going to add or rephrase that one to beautification then?
Yeah, we can rephrase that to beautification, that's fine. All right.
Last meeting.
Okay, do you guys have a motion? Because you guys have to make a motion on this
I'll
one.
make a motion that we submit the 5 items for recommendation.
Plus beautification, or plus micro businesses. Okay. Say, okay, your motion, let me repeat the motion back to make sure that I've got it correct. Did you want to leave the list as is, except you're taking out the rehabilitation of homes, and you're adding in assistance to micro businesses? Right.
So that was your motion. I got a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Okay, who seconded for?
He seconded.
You're pointing and there's 2 people there. You did, thank you. Sorry, my perspective is you're just pointing. There's 2 people there. Thank you.
Yeah. You definitely use it as like procedural language.
So, we're a little kicked back over here. So. Okay, we have one last item. It's the long-range calendar.
Number 7, to review the long-range calendar and make adjustments as needed.
Okay, I don't think you guys have anything, like the next one is kind of a carved in stone day, because that's when the packets will go up, but it's not necessarily packets this time. It's essentially how that they will be able to do their applications. We will have the people from City Data Services here, and they're going to talk about how to log in and how to do it, and if there are new people, how to get into the program. So we'll have representatives on hand at the next meeting. That will be the one that if anybody is interested at all, and make sure they come, and we will have a sign-in sheet for that one, because that way we can prove they were here and they got the information and know what they have to do, and that for capital projects it's prevailing wage, and for what the reporting is and how they can log in and actually put their applications in. Other than that, anything coming up, if you know of a day that you can't make it, or that in February you have a preference for when we might have a special meeting, I know it's pretty early for that, but keep that in mind, because when we do get these applications, you might want to split them into more than one meeting. The last time we had 17 applications, I believe. We had 17 projects going at once. That's a lot of applications for you guys to discuss in one night. We'll see what happens, but just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, that we might want to have a special meeting for part of that. Reports? That covers that. Is everybody okay with the calendar? I don't think there's anything that you guys want to change at this point. Yeah, and now it's just
Number 8, reports from committee members. Commissioners. Yeah, I don't have too many here. I've been trying to get more people to know about this committee and what it does. Because when I was first appointed, I had no idea, but it was really an integral part of what goes on. And we need to make sure that we have representation of the community. So I will make it a personal challenge to commissioners to see if we can just tell at least one person or have one person come in. Because then they'll go through word of mouth. I'm fortunate that I have a social media page called My Seaside Posse, and I try to get as much information out there just to get community involvement, so that they're not saying, why did they do this? Well, you know what, you should have been involved. Because for me, now that I find out the responsibility that we have, boy, it's a tough call. But if we get community people in here saying what they want, and you can say, this is what you guys want, this is what us to do. So, and that's all, still just try to get more people to be aware and informed, and, I think we'll make ourselves. Okay, any reports from staff? I should give you the night off, you don't have to say anything.
Well, I try to include as much, just so that everybody is aware of this, I do try to include as much as possible in the packet, so that, for a couple of reasons. One is, a lot of you are new, and this will give you some background as to what actually is involved with this program. And it's also a good reference material, so if you want to go back and say, like a couple months from now, and go, what did we actually talk about them? What were those posters, and what were those? They're in there. They're in the packet. You can look at them up online. They're all available online. You can do the search and on our website, and you can bring up all these old packets and take a look at them, and it's good reference material for them. So rather than beat too much of this to death, I do try to include a lot of stuff in the packet just for reference material. I don't necessarily want to come in here and tell you every little line item of every little report, but it's good for you to have as a reference material.
I'm sure I speak on behalf of the commission. I really appreciate what you did, because I'm, like I said, I'm still learning. I haven't got my acronym quarter ring yet. So, every meeting.
There are a lot of acronyms involved with this, and I apologize for them, and they're not acronyms that I created, so it's like... It's always exciting here. That's all.
I will entertain a motion for adjournment. This meeting is over.
Great job, you guys. Seriously.